Remember here over at Scribes with various other links. So Kathleen Kennedy says new films will move Star Wars past Lucas's original vision, will introduce new characters and start with something fresh. Which, if anyone else said that, would be like, oh, I mean, that's to be expected. But when Kathleen Kennedy and when Disney says that, it's like, oh, well, you're just saying you're going to just give people a bag of suck and just keep delivering on the suckage. Someone in the comments says, yeah, well, since people were on board with Lucas, you're also going to be moving past the audience as you move past Lucas. So a quick video about the end of Disney Star Wars, which that's not a hyperbolic statement. And it like if there's an end of Disney in the future, decades in the future when they finally run out of money, people might be able to point back to some of these decisions and go, yeah, this seemed to be... They opened up the before they were just scratching at their arms, but this has kind of opened up the femoral to let that stuff out quick. So diversity and feminism is the future of Star Wars, but that is exactly what doesn't sell. Hugo Boss says what? Not just in America, but worldwide. And it's not just me saying this. It's the buying consumer saying this. They really don't give two shits about diversity or feminism. And I don't either, of course. It's cancer. But why would they care about this? It doesn't matter. Like the why of it doesn't matter. The personal attacks against the person. It's like, oh yeah, I don't like, these aren't our values. I don't want diversity, feminism, cancer. There's nothing you can say to the buyer, the second part of that contractual exchange. Their reasoning doesn't matter. They just told you their reasoning. Whatever their reasoning, no matter if you find it abhorrent or acceptable, it doesn't matter. That's their... Just treat it mathematically. It's like, okay, well, that's a consumer. That is consumers who are checking out because of diversity and feminism. Okay, I got that. So we're going to have to find the consumers, if we go down this path, that are on board with diversity and feminism. And you look around, you're like, yeah, there's not a whole lot of them. Which is not a problem if you're making a $30 million movie. When you're making $300 million movies, it's a very, very serious problem. So worldwide, obviously, this kind of stuff doesn't sell. So if anything is going to bleed Disney dry, if they continue this woke feminist Star Wars, and I'm sure they're going to, they're not going to turn this around. This is a religion to them. This is going to be what bleeds Disney dry. They can't put $200 to $300 million movies into a chick flick Star Wars and make money. And when it bombs or doesn't, just barely doesn't even break even, then they have two Star Wars bombs under their belt, because Solo bombed also. Rogue One sort of worked, but that was back when Star Wars had a lot more goodwill. That was in 2016. It cost anywhere from $220 to $270 million. It was one of the more expensive movies at the time. And it made over $1 billion. Those days are long, long. I think I saw that in the theater. And it was decent. It was a whole lot better than the Star Wars trilogy, but you're never going to see that kind of thing ever again. Those days, it's not just the movies and the wokeness of the movies and the diversity and feminism. It's the goodwill of Disney, and it's not just Star Wars. It's Disney and the stuff they're grooming kids in Florida, and they're making the kids, like, they're openly bragging about trying to convert the kids. It's just people start to look at Disney and go like, oh, you're like, this is not the Disney of my youth, of the from the 40s to the 90s. Disney had kind of a certain vibe. Even after that, a little bit, they guys started getting a little bit woke. But no, this is a completely different group of people. I mean, these are. It's been subverted and corrupted. At some point, you got to look at not just Disney, but all of Hollywood and come to that conclusion. So the thing with Rogue One is that it had Darth Vader at the end, and that's what people were, a lot of that was what they were on board with. And it had, Carrie Fisher was CGI'd into it, and Peter Cushing was CGI'd into it. And the thing is, like, people were against that, but if you were having, it was a prequel to the lead up to A New Hope, you really had to have them CGI'd in it. Otherwise, you would had to use actors who looked, they had to be in that prequel role. And it was, to see Vader come down a hallway was what people were very much on board with. Like, I think there's people who probably went to go see the movie just for that scene, because it was a little bit silly. And it had this weird Caribbean island theme. I mean, it was like, yeah, it was like the Disneyfication. It was the start of the Disneyfication of Hollywood. So they paid $4 billion rights for the name Star Wars, not to tell the story. They're lizard people. Nothing matters to them but the narrative. Yeah, you're not going to see a character who looks like this ever again. People who have faith in anything coming from Hollywood absolutely freaking blows my mind. I was listening to Sci-Fi for Me TV. They're on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. But if you listen to them on Rumble and Odyssey, you can put it in the Brave you can listen in the Brave browser, and you can turn off the screen so you can just take your phone. I was gardening, and these guys were having this long form discussion, is why I listen to those channels, about up and coming Hollywood movies, and they had some hope for Superman or whatever, the new Lois Lane that's been picked out, and whatever new film is on the horizon. And I listen to the channel a lot, so I'm not trying to like damn them with faint praise or something. But how exactly do you have hope for these new movies? At some point, you have to recognize that Hollywood, as you know it, is over. It's like if you want to talk about the past history of the Supermans, that's for sure. Like Hollywood, you can just kind of draw a line and go, oh, yeah, you're going to have to go back and draw from the past and perhaps explore other areas, film noir of the 40s and 50s that you haven't watched yet. Because it's like, people refer to Casablanca. It's like, yeah, there was hundreds of films that are, kind of vaguely will give you that that vibe of Casablanca. In fact, some of them had the same actor in them. Who's that one guy who plays the scumbag who was the pickpocket in that film? He's actually in a lot of films of that genre. I mean, literally, yeah, you're gonna have to go back if you enjoy film, you're gonna have to go back and watch other films. I mean, there's probably more recent films that you've missed out on because it's something you can look at the modern stuff and go like, yeah, this is just the messaging is just too much. I just can't. I just don't want to be lectured to by the worst people in the world. I mean, these people fly to islands to do the Epstein type of stuff. So Hollywood is full of lizard people who hate you. Movies to them are just propaganda to push whatever is popular with the bullshit crowd. It's okay to give up on Hollywood. It peaked a long time ago. So I don't know if you're looking at the screen, but they've got the sets and costumes from some of the original Star Wars. And that's the thing with Star Wars is the sets and costumes are so iconic that you can just pose in front of them. It's vaguely from the 77, 83 era. And if you're 40s, 50s, 60s, it connects to you in a way. And then because the new stuff is not going to connect to anyone in any shape or form. Like if you have to have the Millennium Falcon and R2-D2 and C-3PO and a Wookiee, you have to have something that connects to the past because the new stuff is just, it's just going to be like some diverse feminist sci-fi fantasy flick about girl power. Yeah, but look, R2-D2, like that's not enough to get people to pay $17 to sit in a theater for 2 hours for free. If I can go see it for free online on my tablet, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, for sure. Or even the people who have Disney Plus, like they'll wait for a lot of this stuff to come out on streaming. It might be worth watching. Like The Flash the other night, a 2-hour film. I saw it, online. It's not worth $15 to $20. I don't know what matinees are. Matinees are probably, I think I think they're like $11. It's not worth $11. It's be like, oh, what about it? Like back in the day, God, back in the day. It's not just like obviously inflation makes things cheaper, but the relative price, the buying power of the dollar made things. My buddy and I, we and they would let you do this. You go to a theater in the morning and bring like a protein bar with you or something. We were in college at the time, and you go in and watch a matinee, and then you could stay in the theater all day and just go from movie to movie, and they let you do it. It was like they didn't care. That was a lot of fun. If you're really into, you pay $10 for like 5 movies if you could handle it. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, so think back to the 80s where I'm saying, okay, old man, everything in the past was better. Yeah, I only say that, and it's true. If you're over 40, it's true. No, you're romanticizing the past. Like, buddy, we have the original films of the past. And I mean, like historical films, but also the pop culture entertainment stuff, including the music. We have all those. Go back and listen to some Metallica from the 80s or Black Sabbath from the 70s. Yeah, everything was better in the past. Here's the evidence I'm presenting you. Go back and listen to One in a Million. Oh, I couldn't possibly do that. I think it's still on YouTube. What a fantastic song that was. Anyway, so back in the 80s, where 9 out of 10 of the movie, or what was it? Oh, So Effin' What by Metallica, which I don't know if they wrote that. It might have been like a Danzig song they covered or something, but what a great song that was. I can't even use euphemisms for the lyrics. So think back to the 80s where 9 out of 10 of the movies that would cross your radar would be at least watchable. and 1 out of 10 would be great. You had, think back to that decade, or say like 75 to 90. You had Star Wars, Star Trek. When they made like 6 of those movies: Goonies, Indy, Anna series, Gremlins, Big Trouble in Little China, the Conan, plus the whole horror bikini genre of films, or the ski party types of movies. There was a lot of fun stuff, and I don't know, perhaps you remember a small film called Airplane. I think Zemeckis had a whole string of hits in the 80s, and even he looks back and he goes, yeah, we couldn't do any of that kind of stuff today. So I mean, those were great films, great for the time. They were kids movies that adults would also usually enjoy. That was what the 80s were good at, were movies that would sell to a huge spectrum of the audience across age groups. I will say that E.T., that film did not hold up for me at all. I tried to go back and rewatch it, and it just did not connect with me. So that was one decade. It seems almost impossible to consider now. Please, by all means, take the last 10-year block from 2013 to 2023 and point out all the films that can compare to the decade of the 80s. Good luck, because I mean, you're not going to be able to compare those. Like, oh, past 10 years, surely there must be a Goonies in the past 10 years, something equivalent. You start thinking like, oh shit, there's nothing that compares. If you went back earlier, you might have Lord of the Rings. I'll give you that. It was a solid trilogy. Pirates of the Caribbean, I think you had 2 or 3 movies of the that started in 2003. That was a solid, say, trilogy. Like Pirates of the Caribbean 1 and 2 were very solid movies that took you into a world and you believed you were there. So there was a couple movies within the past 20 years, but not many. Not many that are going to stand the test of time like the 80s movie stands the test of time. Anyway, so why is this all happening? Because wokeness kills everything it touches. This just isn't me just not touching grass, fingering vagina, saying this, going outside. I just provided a bunch of examples. I juxtaposed 2 decades to each other. There's the evidence that everything is getting worse. Yikes, my guy. Films are just getting more sensitive for a diverse audience, a marginalized and oppressed and disenfranchised, poxbox, furry, two-spirit, other kin pronouns changed by the day people. Aren't you sensitive? People have turned into bleeding, sensitive pussies, and it has absolutely ruined films. People have become such snowflakes that even earlier films that tried to parody the future would not have at all been able to parody what people would be doing in the real world and what the movies would be like. Imagine 40 years ago, a movie trying to tell people that parents would be doing the things they're doing to their kids now, the stuff that's in schools, the stuff that's actually happening to kids. It wouldn't be a comedy. It'd be like some far-right Hugo Boss propaganda warning about the future of degenerate America, but nobody would have believed it. It would have just been too heavy-handed. It would have been impossible to imagine that people would give their kids substances to mimic the other sex and prevent them from procreating. You would have thought, like, what kind of hell world, what kind of dystopian nightmare hell world is this? Are there drugs in the water? Well, there might be. I mean, what are the effect of those estrogen mimicking plastics in the water? Turning the frogs gay. Yeah, no, he was like more right than wrong about that. Good thing we sued him for $1 billion to shut him up. Oh, what a chilling effect on free speech he had to shut down Mr. Jones. What are there going to be any consequences from that chilling effect on free speech? No, it'll be fine. But people are scared to. Anyway, you would have thought America was taken over by these brain parasites that are secretly running the show. Where's it going with this? So yeah, Hollywood is over. If old peak Hollywood had 9 out of 10 watchable films, but new Hollywood has got 1 out of 10 watchable films, or worse, more like 1 out of 20. I'm trying to think in the past 10, 20 years. Maybe 1 out of 30 films. They're just not worth paying for. I mean, the movies are not. If the movies are like in this, I'm trying to think what I haven't seen a movie in a theater in a while, but they're like anywhere in your area, anywhere from like $15 to $20 for a movie. And I'm trying to think of movies that are worth that. They're not. They're just not worth it. And even like I said, the matinee, I think in my area is $11. That's not worth it either. You would have to, like, it's like with comic books where they're selling for $4. I think $4 isn't enough, but you just put it on a balance of scales. Go, yeah, but the comics aren't worth $4. And comics would be like, nowadays, you'd be better off printing them in black and white on newspaper and getting the price down to like $2.25. And for movies, you'd be better off improving the movies. What a simple thing to say. They're not going to do that. So then the other. is like you'd have to take the price down, the budget. The thing is, they're just not going to do it. Like, you're not going to pay. You'll pay for an expensive meal if it's good, but you're not going to overpay for cheeseburger and fries if it's just it's just nothing to write home about. And it's just like 2 hours in a theater. It's too, even if it was free, it's like still 2 hours of your time. Like, hey, here's tickets to the Flash. Like, I don't know if I want to even get out of the house to go sit in the theater for 2 hours to go watch the Flash, and when I can watch it at home on a tablet. It's like, it's good to see it, to kind of see where the universe is, but not, even to get out of the house to see it. It's like, that's how bad modern movies are, where you're seeing things to finish the continuity of the universe that they started 20 years ago, or in Star Wars 50 years ago. But you're not seeing them as, you're not going into the theater fresh to get on board the Flash or whatever movies are coming out with now. I don't know, what DC and Marvel. I think Deadpool 3 is coming out. But the thing is, there's even like Guardians of the Galaxy is kind of a slow roll hit that should have been a bigger movie. And yeah, it did fine, it made money, but it's like Hollywood is so bad, it's dragging down the good movies. So Deadpool 3 is going to come out, and that should be a good movie. But it's one, like, the wokeness will catch up with it. It's just not going to be as funny as it could be because there's not going to have any edge to it. And if all of Hollywood is just this so dark, depressive, woke, feminist, diverse cancer, even Deadpool 3, it's like, it's just like you lose your taste for all in Hollywood at some point. Anyway, the thing is, you just have to stop supporting Hollywood kind of as an act of protest. And it's not even like a boycott. It's like you just lose your heart on for these movies and there's just no excitement left. So Kathleen Kennedy says you're going to introduce new characters, which is obvious. You're moving forward in time, whether you use the standard locations or move around the galaxy. Obviously, you have to create new people and storylines. That's fine. But when she says it, it means something different than if I said. But like I said, they're still going to have... they have to have the iconic imagery, like the, stormtrooper uniforms, the Millennium Falcon, the X-Wings, the TIE fighters. You have to have stuff that connects people to the past because the storylines are such dog shit. So when she says it, it means, diverse feminist type of cancer, woke, girl power, girl power, girl power. I want to see one of Luke's or Han's kids. Give me a blonde-haired, blue-eyed hero. Get to cast the characters into the roles young, like 18 after high school, so that you can use the same characters for the next several decades if you have to, if the movies catch on. Whatever KK comes out with for Disney Star Wars is going to bomb. Their streaming stuff probably barely pays for itself. And if she thinks she's going to put that Mary Sue woman, Daisy Ridley, into the next film, Star Wars X-10, which, if they were smart, would be a much lower budget film, like sub $100 million. No CGI, just a low budget training film about her finding the next Luke Skywalker as a kid. They overcome some challenges together, and in the sequel, say you age him up to 20, he start using a new actor maybe. He starts his new adventures. He finds his love interest, his sidekicks, all that stuff. Gets a nice little Wookiee sidekick. Because, and let me be clear, nobody wants a female lead in these stories. Like, I feel more people should just be honest about saying, yeah, diversity and feminism is cancer. And then if they want to ask you, well, why? And so what you're saying is like, deflection, straw man, and ad hominem. It doesn't matter. Like, what led me to that conclusion? That is the conclusion. I don't want to, there's no point in discussing it. That's the audience's conclusion. Diversity and feminism is cancer. They're not going to pay to see it. Oh, well, we don't need your money anyway. Yeah, you go, boss. Yeah, we want the original vibe of Star Wars. Oh, well, this Star Wars isn't for you. Yeah, that's we are in satisfaction and accord. We're in complete agreement. Star Wars is not for us. It is for other people now. An audience that has yet to materialize, and an audience I don't think will materialize. Oh, but the Disney trilogy did billions. Yeah, because the 50-year-olds and the 60-year-olds who were around in 77 and 83 to see those original trilogy, they just wanted to finish the 9-film series. That's why Solo bombed. It's like you should be able to do that calculus in your head. That kind of makes sense. They just wanted to finish the series. Like Rogue One did $1 billion because it had Darth Vader as a prequel. But Solo bombed because it was continuing the story. Nobody wants to continue Disney Star Wars because it's fucking cancer. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, join us, subscribe if you wish, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.